every starbase. You want me to rank every starbase? Okay, hang on. We're putting some ground rules in here. One of the rules we're going to have to put in is that some starbases that are pretty much just mentioned in passing, I'm going to consign them to the Great Starbase in the Sky. It's not that they're not important, it's just that we don't have any details really to go into on them. So sorry if your favorite piece of dialogue isn't mentioned. I mean, no disrespect, but we got a job to do here, people. So for example, Starbase 4112, I must ask you to sashay away. Not going to count dry dock facilities here, because I think that one can have a list all on its own. For the entries in this as well, we're going to kind of focus on ones that play a role in the episode as opposed to just being a jumping off point. So for example, Laia Station Alpha, where the Enterprise D collected Ro Laren, we're probably not going to discuss you. With those very tenuous points in place, I'm Sean Ferrick for TrekCulture, and here is every starbase ranked from worst to best. Number 18, Starbase 74. Though a space dock type space dock, if you like, Starbase 74 lands so low here for a couple of reasons. One is that it's all reused footage, so it's not technically its own. And second is that the aspect ratio is just a little bit off. Space dock is said to be about 1 kilometer in length, and you can see that the Constitution class USS Enterprise 1701 just fits through those double doors. Starbase 74 shows a Galaxy class starship fitting through those double doors, which means it's probably about twice the size of space dock, which means I sure hope it never loses orbit. The simple truth behind it is that it was reused footage to save money, okay? And I've no issue with that. It's just that there had been plans to show an external docking port that would have allowed for a Galaxy class ship, but of course, money, money, money. So that's why you get in 11001001, which I think I've got right. Full disclosure, checked it, got it right. Happy out. That footage is used, it's just the Enterprise D superimposed over 1701, and that footage is then reused again for episodes like Remember Me and Phantasms. So, sorry Starbase 74, you may be big, but you're not the best. Number 17, Farpoint. To be fair to Farpoint, you know, it's a good looking station and it could have been one of the best of them all. It's planet based, but it was able to create so many different resources. You could see the Federation through the next millennium. There's just one little problem. The starbase itself was actually an imprisoned spacefaring life form that had been held there by the Bandi. When its mate discovered it, things did not go well for those opportunistic folks. Farpoint itself was a lie, so for all of these seemingly positive things, it cannot rank any higher here. Hasn't that jellyfish been through enough? Number 16, Starbase 375. Though Starbase 375 was a reuse of the prop from the motion picture, the orbital office, this was repurposed so that those copper tubes which ran above, or below as per Regular 1, were missing, thus making it its own class of starbase. Starbase 375 is most notorious as being Cisco's new gaffe after losing DS9 in Call to Arms. It would become the hub of Admiral Ross of the Defiant as they prepared Operation Return. It is slightly ironic that Cisco and crew would choose one of Star Trek's older space base models to make their new home in when they were planning to return to one of the newest ones at the time. That being said, there's something to be said for Starfleet designs, nice and clean, and the Defiant did look good floating beside it. Number 15, Starbase Earhart. Starbase Earhart is an unassuming starbase that actually has a lot of history to it. It was obviously operational in the 23rd century because Erica Ortegas remembered a Nausicaan trying to sell her a game of Domjot there. The Nausicans, it seems, never left. Earhart is most famous for being the final resting place of Johnny Picard's original heart. Yes, it was here where he had his fateful run-in with the Nausicans, there they are again, getting stabbed in the chest. In Beta Canon, it was also said to be the meeting place of Rachel Garrett and Marta Botanites. In Alpha Canon, it also saw 2 more important Starfleet officers arrive. It was only a quick warp away from Quelar 2, and Ensigns Mariner and Tendi went there to fix a Cation post for Dr. T'Ana. By this stage, some of the lush greenery that was actually a reused prop from the film Logan's Run had been removed, and it was a sort of duller, browner look, thus proving that you don't have to be the prettiest starbase to be one of the most historically important. Number 14, Douglas Station. Douglas Station was the main depot for Star Trek Lower Decks and served as a sort of home base for the Cerritos, supported by ships like the Van Sitters and the Archimedes. Unfortunately, it was also home to the Texas-class ships. Vice Admiral Buenamigo was very proud of his new entirely self-sufficient class of ships, so much so that he would go any distance to hide any design flaws. To that end, he ordered them to attack and destroy the Cerritos. That backfired when they turned their weapons on him and Douglas Station. This was the first time that the audience had seen a space dock type starbase use its own weapons, and they were found to be lacking. It was only thanks to the intervention of the Cerritos, Mariner, and the entire contingent of California-class ships that the starbase wasn't blown out of the sky. Look at this picture. Look how they massacred my boy. Number 13. Epsilon 9. Star Trek the Motion Picture is the underappreciated gem that just keeps on giving us gifts. The level of work and attention that went into making that film, I won't say it's unmatched in the rest of the franchise, but it is certainly up there. Epsilon 9 Station serves as a fantastic example of this. As detailed as it is from a distance, model maker John Dykstra talked about using acid-etched brass to give even more details on the close-up. This was to give squared edges to the model, which sometimes rounded edges, he argued. It didn't help give the overall scale of the station. Though the station would sadly just get in V'ger's way in the motion picture, we would sort of see it again twice more in The Search for Spock. At one point, the model for Epsilon 9 adorns the wall behind Kirk and Commodore Morrow. Then an enlarged version of it is seen just as Kirk is leaving the officer's mess. I like that model. Number 12. Regula 1. Regula 1 was devised to house Project Genesis, the team that were building what was supposed to be the greatest energy conversion device in the galaxy, or one of the worst weapons ever made. You decide. What the station was not designed to do was put up with any kind of outside interference. The model was, of course, a reuse of the orbital office from the motion picture. This was designed by Andrew Probert, who added the then copper tubes above, planning that they would be full of things like fruit and vegetable and plants, which is how the station would then get its oxygen. Number 11. Sol Station. Sol Station appears in the third season of Star Trek Picard, replacing the long-present Space Dock 1. It was evidently much larger than Space Dock 1 as well, because you could see these extra platforms and extra turrets, and also the sheer number of ships that it could accommodate. When Frontier Day began in earnest, the Enterprise F exited Sol Station as part of her final journey, passing through those massive doors as a couple of her predecessors had done in years past. Sol Station was heavily armed, which came in handy when the Borg took over the entire Federation armada that had gathered around the station. It took an absolute beating, but it did manage to hold its own long enough to keep Earth safe while the Enterprise D took out the cube over Jupiter. While the station did take heavy damage, it was not entirely destroyed, as evidenced that only a year later it was back up, fully operational, and ready for the launch of the Enterprise G. Number 10. Starbase 6. Starbase 6 has the honor of being represented 3 different ways throughout Star Trek's history. When it first appeared in the original episode of The Ultimate Computer, it was reused footage of Space Station K7 from The Trouble with Tribbles. Of course, it wasn't named in that episode. This was standard at the time. Budgets were not then what they are today, certainly not for creating new models all the time. In the Next Generation episode, The Schizoid Man, the Enterprise D visits Starbase 6, although at this point in history it seems to be a planet-based starbase. When the original series underwent its remaster, a new CGI model was designed and insert into the episode to feature as Starbase 6. A version of this design of the starbase would go on to serve as the inspiration for Starbase 25 in the Lower Decks episode, An Embarrassment of Dupplers. I've got to give it to you, Starbase 6. You are versatile. Number 9. Starbase 25. Starbase 25 had a fair amount of history going for it before the Cerritos arrived in an embarrassment of doublers. It had been seen on star charts on the Enterprise 100 years earlier and served as the destination in the episode The Slaver Weapon, which saw the Kzinti introduced into Star Trek. Both Kirk and Spock were known to have visited the Starbase, as their names are carved into one of the bars. Lower Decks creator Mike McMahon took inspiration from several historical elements of Star Trek when putting together this Starbase. As you can see, it's based somewhat on Starbase 6. It's also got some elements of space dock to it as well. And if you look closely, it's got some Andorian cruisers and also some Daedalus class ships there as well. Aboard the station, there are things like Quarks, the Lucky Ferengi. There's a fabulous ballroom that the command conference took place in, something that Freeman will hopefully one day get an invite to so she can see a DJing O'Connor, presuming he's still around after the events of Star Trek Prodigy. Starbase 25 may not be the fanciest starbase of them all, but for history alone, it was one of the greats. Number 8. Starbase 1. Starbase 1 was designed to be Starfleet's first space station, therefore it's the oldest. It first appeared in Star Trek Discovery's first season after it took a little bit of a beaten from the House of Dagor, but then also became something of the main hub, if you like, for Strange New Worlds. According to Strange New Worlds, in fact, the Starbase was built around seed pods that had been sent out into space. These had then grown forests so large they could not be transported back to Earth. So the idea was keep them in space and keep them safe. Those seed pods were not present when the House of Dagor attacked the station in Star Trek Discovery, which is frankly a good thing. They had obviously been sent somewhere safe. 80,000 people were killed when Dagor's forces attacked the Starbase, so it was bad enough without destroying rainforests as well. The station was then moved. Initially, it was located in the furthest reaches of our solar system, but was then moved to orbit over Jupiter. It has gone from being one that took a fair bit of a kicking to one of the most venerated, respected space stations of them all. Number 7. Starbase 80. Once considered the low point of Starfleet's outreach and design, Starbase 80 was a hive of violence, washouts, and assignments from hell, not to mention the odd Akamarian or two dozen. Beckett Mariner loathed her time on the old clunker, promising never to return. Once Lower Decks actually visited the station, the audience saw that the rundown old banger wasn't that bad at all. While it wasn't the most advanced locale in the fleet, it was filled with an array of interesting shops and clientele, thanks in no small part to Commander Cassia Knox and her upbeat can-do attitude. Starbase 80's prospects drastically improved with the stabilization of a quantum fissure in the new Next Generation. The station was moved alongside it thanks to its older systems proving resilient against the fissure's tachyon emissions. What was once a death knell for a career became a feather in a commander's hat, a hat worn with pride by Captain Carol Freeman from 2382 onwards. Number 6. Federation HQ. The Federation headquarters is an outlier on this list because technically it's not a space station at all. The USS Federation is a Pax-class starship. It served as the primary location for Starfleet's command structure, including its civilian government. The ship was designed by Ryan Denning for Star Trek Discovery's third season, though later had additional elements added to it by Lee Fitzgerald. Closely resembled a spire with struts extending, but was then revealed to be able to separate into smaller support life crafts, if you will, such as when the DMA was approaching planets like Earth and Ni'Var. After United Earth seceded from the Federation, the HQ naturally left orbit over the planet and relocated into deep space, which is where the Discovery finds it. Once United Earth rejoins the Federation, although it then doesn't take its position back in orbit of Earth, what it does do is abandon that dispersal field that effectively cloaks it, because now, who wants to hide anymore? Number 5. Deep Space Station K7. K7 first appeared in the episode The Trouble with Tribbles, and obviously got quite a nice glow-up on the remaster. Matt Jeffries originally designed it to have a central hub surrounded by a habitat ring, which sounds like an early concept for what would become Deep Space Nine. Gene Roddenberry, however, nixed that idea. Roddenberry had contacts at the Douglas Aircraft Company, which had pitched some space station ideas to NASA. One of these ideas would become the basis of K7. Though the original filming model has unfortunately long since been lost, a new one was created by Greg Jean for the episode Trials and Tribulations. He spent hours painstakingly going through footage of the original series episode to make sure he got it right. And even still, he managed to add a couple of embellishments. For example, there are now shuttles in that shuttle bay at the bottom of the space station. K7 remains one of the most enduring designs in all of Star Trek, even though technically it only ever appeared in one episode. Number 4, Jupiter Station. Jupiter Station, as it appeared in the episode Lifeline, was designed by Rick Sternbach, based on a painting that he had done for Captain Picard's quarters on the Enterprise D. It effectively looked like a bunch of the mushroom tops from Starbases stacked on top of each other, with the idea that these sections could be repurposed. Jupiter Station serves as the base for Dr. Louis Zimmerman. This configuration of Jupiter Station has only appeared once in Star Trek to date, but it did serve as an inspiration for Star Trek Picard's 3rd season. Daystrom Station, which serves as the Black Ops site that Section 31 uses to store some of the more collectibles that they've got their hands on, is a heavy reuse of the design of Jupiter Station, incorporating elements as well of the Midas Array, the Epsilon 9 station, and several Class Y storage containers. There was at least one cafe aboard Jupiter Station as well, as Lita very nearly became the manager of it. Number 3, Yorktown. Yorktown Station is named after the original name of the starship in Star Trek, when Gene Roddenberry was pitching Star Trek to the networks. This has carried on down through the years, eventually becoming this starbase that we see in Star Trek Beyond. This station, which is a giant snow globe in space, uses so much scale and plays with gravity that it can host so many people, up, down, left, right, back to front, side to side. You name it, they're everywhere. It's also big enough that it can have ships dock inside it, such as those moments when we see the Enterprise flying along under pedestrians' feet. It was relatively well armed for a starbase as well, as it was able to hold off at least some of Krall's swarm, though in truth it was on the verge of being obliterated by the time the Franklin arrived. Denying such beauty to an audience would be a crime, so I would love to see this turn up in the Prime universe as well. As it stands, maybe unlikely, but with Starfleet Academy on the way, set in the 32nd century as well, you never know. Number 2, Space Dock. Space Dock 1, or just Space Dock, is arguably the most beautiful starbase that has ever been seen in Star Trek. It began operation in the mid-2250s and remained in place until presumably some point before the 2390s, when it was moved to 8th and Prime and retooled to become the Fleet Museum. The model was designed by Industrial Light and Magic for Star Trek III and instantly became a classic. It would appear in the remaining original series films and via reused footage would turn up several times throughout the next generation as well. Now, some beta canon updates to the notes have said that it was upgraded a few times through the years. For example, adding some wider doors a bit down below to accommodate a Galaxy-class starship. Space Dock is roughly 3 miles high, making it easily visible from the Earth's surface. It was moved via warp tugs to 8th and Prime, as per Dave Blass, and would then become home to some of the most famous surviving ships in history, like the Enterprise A, Kronos 1 for some reason, and the HMS Bounty. Number 1, Deep Space Nine. DS9 tops out this list through the potential annoyance of the Starfleet Corps of Engineering, as it's the only non-Starfleet base to turn up on this list. The former Cardassian facility was built to process ore using a Bajoran slave labor force. The station was designed by Rick Sternbach and Herman Zimmerman, making its first appearance in the Deep Space Nine pilot, Emissary. That DS9 is number 1 on this list is probably a bit of a no-brainer, with Space Dock as well obviously being so high, both of which appearing more times than any other starbase in Star Trek history. The tacky Cardassian fascist eyesore lazily circles the Bajoran wormhole and has seen several battles throughout its lifetime as well, including being briefly lost to the Dominion for a short time. It also stands as one of the few hero bases filmed entirely using practical models, with an asterisk. It appeared in every single episode of Deep Space Nine, except for that very final shot of What You Leave Behind, where the only time ever they created a CGI model for that pulling out shot. It may not be to everyone's tastes, looking at you, Shax, but in my opinion it remains a beautiful, elegant design, one that can also pull double duties, For example, when you needed it to be Empok Nor, tilt it on its side. For sheer exploration and time spent, DS9 is the clear number one on this list. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm off to circle those pylons and ooh and ah one more time. That is everything for our list today, folks. Thank you so much for watching along. I hope you enjoyed it. What do you think? Would you have added anything? Would you have taken anything away? Please make sure that you're following us on the various socials. I have been Sean Ferrick. Make sure you're following me at Sean Ferrick. And of course, follow at TrekCulture on the various socials as well. Look after yourself until I see you again. Make sure that you live long and prosper. You are cool. You are brilliant. And I would happily circle some pylons with you. Thanks very much.